Good morning, everybody. Hello, 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 Jeremiah, Laura, Swift, Meme, Rachel, Angel, Aaron. Hello, hello, hello. How's everybody doing? Here, have a busy morning, so I'll be mostly listening. No worries. Totally understand. Oh, never a dull moment. So obviously the California results aren't in yet, but at least not fully. But Trump pick lost in Iowa. Yep. Sure did. I don't know much about the person that he lost to, but the person that I interviewed who was running for Senate in Montana won her primaries, which is awesome. Not much better. Well, hopefully Iowa will come out in force in the general. That's all we can hope, right? The Montana one, yeah. Is it really only Wednesday? I feel like this is the never-ending week. I know, right? Something happened and YouTube logged you out. Yeah, I feel like that happens every once in a while. Trying to see if any other big I'm kind of looking through the yeah. Looks like a lot of the people that I interviewed from, at least the people that I interviewed from California, it looks like aren't winning, which sucks. Technically, one of them hasn't been called yet because only 53% of the votes have come in, but Texas Secretary of State is stepping down in July, and the name that is being floated as a replacement is a Christian nationalist. Very concerning. That is fair, Philip. That is 100% fair. I think I would be very concerned as well. Trying to get my daughter to volunteer for a progressive candidate for House because she can't find a job yet. Might as well do something good, in my opinion. You have that ability, absolutely. Absolutely. Chuck Park, the NYC Queens candidate. Oh, cool. Good morning. Yes, don't forget to hit that thumbs up. Nate Schatzline. Never heard of him. I'm probably gonna hate him. That, yeah. That first picture is just one that's like already kind of creeps me out, but I'm gonna be honest. He's 19 and has the ability, luckily. There you go. But yeah, I don't feel like there was any other surprising, at least that, not yet. We're still pretty much waiting on California now. That's all we're waiting on at this point. Do you guys remember all of the stuff? I think the one surprise to me was the 11th district in California, and maybe it's just my feed that was giving it, but I was somewhat surprised that one of the Democratic candidates who I saw a lot on my feed got as little, like, I pretty much assumed that they were going to be one of the two people based on the amount of times and places that I've seen this candidate being everywhere. No, I didn't see that, Swift. Which rep candidate is that? And he was like, why does that matter? Why does it matter if... Yeah. But, you know, morals. Come on. They got morals. They got morals. Oh. See, I think that's the biggest problem that we're dealing with. Like, I know I need to have more energy, but every day I read the news and every day it makes me not want to have more energy. Victor Mark. So he's running for governor. The bar is below hell, seriously. Oh yeah. Front runner for Colorado's GOP primary. For governor said he has unalived someone. He unalived someone when he was 7 years old, then refused to answer how many more lives he may have taken in a jaw-dropping interview. Victor Marks, who's leading the polls in the state's GOP primary, freewheeled through a series of bonker claims about his past during an interview with Local 9 News. Clark asked Marks about his previous claim that his abusive stepfather forced him to unalive a man at age 7. Is that the only person you've ever unalived? Marks, 60, fell silent more than 10 seconds, taking a deep breath and looking upward as if searching his memory. Well, I would say as a child, yes, without question. But I've been in other situations where, possibly people or persons lost their life as a result of me defending myself in other countries. There's no count on that. There's no photos. Do you think you've killed people as an adult? He was asked. Does it matter? Yes, I'd say so. Why? Taking the life of somebody is a pretty weighty thing. If someone's trying to take your life or you're in combat, it's still a weighty thing to take someone else's life. I mean, it could be self-defense, it could be justified, but it's still a weighty thing. So I'm just asking, how many lives have you taken? Well, if I did, I wouldn't be telling a reporter sitting here in my training center. How about the voters? There's no need. I don't think that's important. It's actually kind of an odd question to me. Very interesting. Hey, Garpu. Morning, Clara. I feel the same way. I'm just drained by noon. Yeah. It's, I was talking to someone about this and talking about how, this is supposed to be entertainment. And in my head, I'm like, I hear what they are saying. And obviously, I'm thinking about the fact that to grow, I need to somehow bring value to people. But also, I'm just like, something feels wrong about talking about what's going on in the world as a form of entertainment. I understand the perspective in terms of a business model. It's just very difficult for me to wrap my head around. Like, I understand debate streamers are entertainers because that's all it is. They're not doing anything. They're not bringing anything to the table. Not really. But, is what it is. But yeah, so Trump endorsed pick for, what is this? It's for governor, right? Yeah. I wake up constantly in the night on a regular now. At this point, I think it's how I'm handling the stress. Yeah. Yeah. And it's the frustration of it. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure how to handle it. Because, again, they're right. Like, you can, depending on what the news is like for the day, you can feel kind of depressed at the end of the day. But it's also like, I don't know. I don't know. I've been having nightmares I yell and wake myself up from, and that's never happened. Ugh. Yeah. I'm not, luckily, that's horrible. I'm luckily not having that, but I'm definitely feeling the stress in my neck and shoulders. Pretty much constantly have like a headache that's going through my head because I'm so knotted right here. But it is what it is. It is what it is. Trying to think if anything that is worth talking about right now that we won't be talking about in a little bit as well. I was surprised at how little votes. I mean, again, in terms of getting a victory, it's probably like making sure that a Democrat is on the ballot. I'm sure it's a good thing. But like I was surprised how few votes some of the gubernatorial candidates got. Like again, I knew Katie Porter wasn't going to win. In the end, I knew Chad Bianco wasn't going to win. Katie Porter only getting 4.6% did kind of surprise me. It's probably good because that at least made sure a Democrat was on the. I mean, Chad Bianco is a friggin' was a is a GOP candidate, but still, I don't know. It's just all weird. It's just it doesn't feel like Wednesday though. I will admit that. I'm starting to get interviews again, which is nice. It was good to take a week, like a month ish off from interviews. I needed that. Allowed me to get mostly caught up. I'm probably going to start interviewing people that won their district. Yeah, he told me. Gave them my info. Have not heard from them yet, but this is one of the few places I come to anymore because especially I appreciate that, Clara. I appreciate that. And I wish we could talk about different things or do different things than what we're doing. Yeah, when I'm going to sleep, like I just have my iPad and I watch uh this guy who plays video games. It's like it's my moment of pure peace where I can just watch something that doesn't matter for a little while and it helps me go to sleep. You watch the Japanese van camping videos? I've watched some of those. I listen to Pride and Prejudice and bore to sleep. So what I do normally, once I found this guy who posts like multiple videos a day, because he just plays games and then posts videos. But before that, I used to watch the same episode of something every single day. Something that I knew so well that I didn't have to actually watch it. That was the best way for me to get to sleep. Like, I used to watch the first Captain America movie like every night. I'd be asleep within 2 minutes because I already knew it. My brain knew it. I didn't have to watch it. I just listened to it and I knew exactly what was going on. And it just zonked me out. I'm more concerned about what the states are doing over the actual elections. Alabama gets to use their map, and Texas, us stepping down in the middle of everything. That's fair. I mean, I've said this before. Everyone needs to assume that they're going to do everything possible to make it harder for people to vote. So everyone's got to have a plan. Usually listen to talk radio. I used to listen to talk radio. Now you listen to Manda. Yeah. Yeah. I've found cold brew coffee, milk, and Carnation instant breakfast is all I need to survive. I grew up, like when I was a kid, that was like my meal every morning was Carnation instant breakfast. I still remember the song. Hey, Catherine. Thank you. I think a lot of us are living on coffee and sleep deprivation. Hey, OC. Thank you, Kat. Yep. What's up, Silver? I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. It's been a long week. Literally a long, like 7 days mentally. And I am working my way out of it slowly. Always hard when you lose people from a community that you care about them. So it is what it is, though. Hey, Teach. Hey, Patty. Good morning. You like cream of wheat? I mean, we're all weird, Garpu. I'm not a fan of cream of wheat, but hey, if you are, go for it. I'm sure we all have those. Thank you, Patty. Guys, if you're over here on TikTok, please tap that nose. Share it out to people. It helps. Yeah, I've been going to sleep a little bit later. But there was a period where I was like falling asleep at like 10 o'clock. Any California mayoral updates? So nothing definite. So one Bass has been confirmed to be one of the choices. I'm assuming you're talking about LA mayor. Yeah. Karen Bass has gotten I guess basically there's going to be a runoff election. The question now is between Spencer Pratt or Nithya Raman. We're not sure who the second one's going to be because only 63% of the votes have been counted. So I guess there's still a chance that enough of a chance that the other one could win. Or at least, yeah. So in Maine news, Janet Mills is still on the ballot for Senate. Oh, really? Interesting. Hey, April. And good morning, Bien. My kids and grandkids ask for my oatmeal occasionally. They say it can't be recreated. There you go. Good morning, Leah. How are you? Some of the positives that have come from the primaries, I mentioned it over on the tube this morning. The candidate that I interviewed who's running for senator in Montana won her primary, which is pretty cool. We still don't know about governor yet. We don't know about most of California. There's a few that have been decided, but in general, we don't know yet. Morning, Bonnie. The Trump-backed candidate for governor in Iowa lost. From my understanding, the other one isn't much better, but it's always nice when a Trump chosen candidate loses. I'll always cheer that one. My son loves steel cut oats. I use steel cut oats for what is it? What is it called? When you put like the oats, the oatmeal, the liquid and all of that stuff into a jar, like and fruit and everything, and you put it in the fridge and you have it for breakfast. I don't know why my brain cannot. Overnight oats. That's what it is. Yeah. That's what I use for overnight oats is the steel cut oats. Yes, she did run in Iowa. Yep. She is still running in Iowa. She wasn't running against anyone, so but yes. Yep. oats work in meatloaf if you're out of breadcrumbs too. Interesting. We don't have meatloaf really in our house, but they don't get as mushy and slimy as regular oats and overnight oats. Yes, correct. What lies do you believe I am telling, old school? Because you know you can look up everything I've said. I'm not making it up. Happy Pride. How are you doing today? Guys, if you're over here on the tube, please tap that nose. It helps push it out to people, especially if we can get to 10,000 within the first 10 minutes. I know that won't happen, but it is a beautiful day. I wish it wasn't going to get quite as warm as it is here. I have oatmeal and dried fruit in the pantry. Vit C takes iron out of oats. Ah. I like doing blueberry lemon overnight oats. So put blueberries in with lemon juice. It's really good. Hey, Di, good morning. How was the rest of your live? I would have stayed longer, but I was working on today's upload and trying to bring myself to make content again. Like other content. For some reason, that's been a real struggle. Hey, Kat. You were just chatting. I hear you. What we do, right? What we do. So much chatting. Di, what is your opinion on the revelation from the whole Graham Plattner thing? It's been interesting seeing people's responses in Maine to it. News came out that there was that at one point, it's not like I don't know how recently, Graham Plattner was sexting with women while married. Di knows she can always come up. Di is always welcome. What's happening to CBS? Yeah, Scott Pelley getting fired is wild. Excited for November elections here in Texas? Good. I hope Texas comes out in a way that they've never come out before. Yeah. I mean, am I a fan of it? No, I'm not. but I also find it very difficult to sit here and have some sort of moral outrage in comparison to everything else we're dealing with. I don't know. I'm also a guy, so.
Well,
Hey,
there is that.
I know. And it's like, so I guess my question always that I try and ask myself is, if it came out that a woman was doing it, what would my response be on that?
Well, and I feel bad because I don't really know much about that, and I was gonna look it up, but then there were some bad things on my computer. So, so okay, so we've got some married fella having an affair.
No. So here,
Yeah, break it down.
let's break it down.
Can you rap it while you break it down? No.
You know, you don't want to hear that at all. I'm going to try and find a specific story on it so I make sure I don't miss anything.
Sure, I'm reading in the comments here too. Thanks, everybody.
Okay. So, Plattner's wife, Amy Gertner, said in a video that Plattner's campaign released over the weekend, he was really angry about the reports of the text messages. Oh, that's Amy and I went through something hard because of me. I want to actually find one that talks about the story. Fetterman calls Plattner a creep. That's hilarious.
That's interesting. Very, very interesting. Ooh, is this another dating app?
I don't know. Okay. Okay. So he texted with, it looks like up to 12 women. I've seen a couple reports with different numbers. I don't think the numbers matter, but which wrote that his wife had told the campaign in August about the messages she found on Plattner's phone earlier in their marriage. So at the beginning of their marriage. It was an app. Okay. New York Times also published a story on Saturday about the text, named former aide Genevieve McDonald as one of the then campaign staffers who confirmed the messages. So my understanding is there was an app. He was using it early in their marriage. They had since gone through marriage counseling to work through all of that. And you know, and then what we've got is basically, I mean, again, it's not like he doesn't have other issues that arguably are worse in the sense of running our government, i.e. the whole tattoo thing.
Oh yeah.
It was at least between consenting adults. Yeah.
Right. And you know, sometimes you have to set that bar a bit low, but sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. The thing that blows me away in these kinds of situations, though, is I really question the intelligence. I really do. And I know I shouldn't, but what kind of a dumbass who's married would go into a situation like this with the amount of publicity that he was going to get and the easy access to that information? That kind of bugs me. Like, dude, why were you so loud about it? I mean, I know there's like the bad stuff, but still.
Yeah.
Like, how did you get it in public? This is the difference between now and then like the beginning, right? Like Hamilton just wrote it all on like pieces of scrap paper and gave it to his wife later. But for this fella, it's like he doesn't have to do anything because it's all over the internet already.
Yeah. And it's yeah. It is bringing a lot of issues in terms of how we define what lines are the most important to us, right? Because
Mhm.
so Bian was saying that that what's her face, the current governor who like put a hold on her campaign and basically ended it, is still on the ballot. And in my head, Janet Mills. And I was like, one of our problems with Janet Mills is she's going to be like way in her 80s when she is done with her first term as a senator. And I know, ask yourself, if he were a Republican, I don't care.
Same. Doesn't
That
matter.
literally doesn't matter to me. I care what they stand for. I don't. Republican, Democrat, those are names. Those are words. They literally mean nothing. They are corporations. Those are parties and corporations. And that does not matter. Thank you, OC. I appreciate all of you for helping us get to 10K.
Yay.
I think it's very important that we have things that we're looking for. Absolutely, I think it matters that we have things that we're looking for. I just feel like we have made so many lines in the sand that what ends up happening is we start realizing as we're going through it that other than the bottom fundamental, and arguably even sometimes that one, but I think in general that one's a doable one for at least one person who's running at all times. No one's going to be able to stay above all of those lines. No one. Like, what some days I feel like what we're looking for as progressives is so unachievable that we are setting ourselves up for a complete failure. That is my worry.
Right. And I have a little different perspective on it. I think from a legal standpoint, when you are assessing something, what you don't necessarily put out what your 5 positives are. You get rid of the things that are absolutely not allowable, and then what's left is your jury or the candidate that you're okay with.
Yeah.
That makes it a little bit easier, I think, because you might not know everything about everyone that's going to be there, but at least you got the worst ones off the table. And that sounds terrible, but I don't know a better way to do it, honestly.
Yeah. And the other problem, how many people, like, here's the really hard part, especially when it comes to politics, right? It takes a very special person to be willing to go through the pain and torment of running for office. I'm not, like, how many people really are willing to do that? I mean, we've seen it. Not many.
Well, and the other thing too, when you get to that point, you got to look at the quality. Like even, and this is something that we talked about even as prosecutors. After 3 years of juvenile work, you need to call it good because you're going to be burned out. And at this point too, it's like, why would you put yourself through it? Well, if in the beginning they're all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, right? And then after that, they figure out how things really work, how seniority makes it so they can't barely do anything, and then it gets less and less. And
Hmm.
uh, the best thing I can mention is, and I probably told you this before, was I did an internship at my state capitol, and I was following around a representative whom I chose. I was a page years and years before. He was like this really funny, hilarious dude. And I was like, I want to go hang out with a hilarious dude now that I'm in law school. So I went in and I'm like, who the heck are you? Because the way he looked, he talked, he did everything, he was like so jaded.
Hmm.
And it was heartbreaking. It was just heartbreaking. So I think there comes a point where you either shift in order to keep doing it down maybe a darker road that you don't like, or you got to get out of it
Yeah.
because I think you can expire in these particular kinds of cases.
Yep. Well, I mean, and we're seeing it even from voters. You look at a lot of the apathetic voters that exist. It's not they didn't start out apathetic. It's not someone just told them. A lot of them were people that were super involved in some way, shape, and form. And for, whether or not they were in there long enough, they hit a point where they're like, nothing is changing. And I'm giving so much of my time and effort to no change that um why in Pennsylvania are gas prices lower than usual? What's usual? What
That's a great
what
question.
what are you comparing it to? What it was a week ago? What's usual? But it's hard, right? It's
It
this is the
is.
hard part of all of this.
It is. And we've had it for so long. At this point, it's like you don't want this to become your reality. So something's got to change. But when we went through that first administration with Trump, if you'll remember, the big things were like we had the pink hats and we were going out like the largest demonstration ever for women. And he was like crowd size issues. And, we had that weird fella that was his press secretary that chewed all the gum and was hilarious. And we had all of that during that first piece. Like, he's not my president. So we focused on our state laws, looking for our states to protect us. Because we all were like, wow, that was so crazy how that happened. Whoa. And then Biden, the whole time we were told he's like this evil monster, which is like, he's probably been one of the best presidents we've ever had, but, didn't talk about it. And then he's back again. I mean, he's back again, Mike. How did this happen? I think it truly, truly shows in my opinion, it shows where our women are at in this country,
Mm,
and the lack of men standing up behind us, supporting us. And that's very distressing. I
yeah.
can't truly see another reason why he would actually be in the White House because women had to vote, right? Why would they vote against their own interest? So that's where I go. But then I have to put it away in this little box in my mind so I don't go crazy and Hulk
Yeah.
out.
It's interesting. I've been processing why this time, I mean, I can say feels worse. Um
Mhm.
Seems worse than some of these other periods uh where there was tension between the people and and the government slash the people in charge, and like CEOs and business leaders and the elites and things like that. um so we've had the civil rights era, we've had the women's suffrage, we've had the Gilded Age, we've we've had a bunch of different periods of time where this country went through a struggle that um that that caused, you know,
Mm-hmm.
there was a lot of contention, there was a lot of fighting, there was a lot of everything going on in all of those for all of those different situations.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
think part of the problem that I think makes this almost worse, or at least more difficult, is I feel like we are going through all three of them and maybe a couple more at once in a
Mm-hmm.
way that we weren't before. Not that those things didn't exist, but they're like, when you see like us, when you see content creators, as someone who is a content creator, as you when you see people, we are at the same time making content that is fighting to keep the rights and representation and all these other things of black people in this country.
Mm-hmm.
We're also having to make content and fight for women's rights to their body, and you got people saying, you got people coming out that are talking about whether women should be even allowed to vote anymore. And we've got the Gilded Age 2.0 that is worse than the original Gilded Age in terms of difference between the top and the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And you can probably add some like enlightenment thing too going on, where the church is freaking out because a lot of people are starting to go, the church isn't quite what they said and all this other stuff. And I think it's just causing this convergence of all at once, and it's almost overwhelming in our ability to actually, because no one can focus on anything. Not to mention we also have, climate change and
Mm-hmm.
all that too.
I hear you, and you're right. One of the things that I always put into focus when I'm worried about it is to think, this is like quintessentially American. Like we came, like, don't get me wrong, my relatives came from all over the place, but they came from the Mayflower because they were fighting some people and they didn't want to fight anymore, right?
Yeah.
And then we were fighting our indigenous people, and then we were fighting each other. Do we want England, France, or the colonies? So if you trace our history, it's like, I think part of being an American is going forward and struggling and fighting almost constantly,
Yeah.
because that's what we're doing. It seems like any year, pick an issue and we're going to be fighting over it.
Yep.
And that just never ends. And how interesting that is, and American that is, it's also exhausting.
Yeah. And Lewis, you're right. Also, the LGBTQIA community has fought for rights for a long time, and people are trying to pull back on those too. Absolutely, you're right. I apologize for missing out on that, or forgetting to mention it.
I went through that case last night. If people are interested, I should post it. Where we went through and we read through what is happening with our LGBTQIA plus community and the military. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how can they even do this? And there's a lot of frustration. My frustration also with that is that we have one lawsuit that was filed during Biden's administration. So I think the issues we're dealing with in the LGBTQIA plus community, they like cross through administrations until we get something that's solid, some kind of protection, solid, set out for this particular protected class. And it's very frustrating because are they strict scrutiny? No, they're intermediate,
Yeah.
which means that any time the rights and protections that they have can be pulled.
Yep. And that is why this is why I've always said what in my personal view, the purpose of the federal government is to make laws that protect that protect everyone. Like, that's their job, is to make sure that everyone's rights, dignity, all that stuff are protected. That is their overarching purpose. If it's something that someone in one state and someone in another state should both have, no matter where in this country you are, that's what we should be paying attention to. And military is one of the biggest and easiest, because that is federal in its own right. And the fact that there's groups of people that don't is literally wild. I mean, it shouldn't be wild. It shouldn't even feel wild. It's literally the history of our country, but
True. And also too, if you look around, and I think this works especially well with the LGBTQIA plus community, is if you look around the world and you see how are others in that kind of protected group treated in other countries. Like where in the world can you go if you are LGBTQIA plus and be in a community that's like, yay, yay, we love you, we love you. And then, because that would be hard to find, and then look and see where the US is. Now, we're not great. We've taken some hits in that area. We need to work and do better. But what other country comes close to how we have been with our LGBTQIA plus community? And that's a failure on the world, not on the community, but it also shows where else are you going to go? I mean, the US is one of the places where some of those protections at least are present.
yeah, I mean, there's quite a few in Europe, especially the Nordic countries, but Nordic countries that are having their issues right now too.
Yeah, they're
Jeez.
going through it. Yep, going through it.
Um, but this is the joy. Another big deal that I think I can imagine that people like you die, and I know Scott probably has an opinion on it. Scott Pelley getting fired from 60 Minutes for speaking his mind.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. That was just a matter of time, though, don't you think?
I mean, yeah, once I saw what he responded to his new boss, I kind of figured he wasn't going to be there anymore. As someone who will always speak their mind, even when it is not popular. I've dealt with having to be with some jobs not being super fans of mine because I spoke reality of what was going on.
Yep. And then the backlash.
I'm not rooting for America to fail. I don't want America to fail. What are you talking about?
That's rude.
What
This
makes
is my country.
What makes you think
Jeepers.
I would want America to fail? That's literally the thing that I don't want. The reason I'm even talking about this is because we are failing. What's up, Scott?
Good morning, Mike. Good morning, Di. How are both of you? Good morning, chat.
Morning. So far, so good, but it's a little too early to tell.
The day has just begun.
It
I do have an
has,
opinion on the
alas.
Scott Pelley thing. Look, for somebody as old as me, 60 Minutes has been a lodestar. My entire life, it's always been there. It's always been as I was speaking on another space last night, I said, look, in the old days, getting a gig on 60 Minutes for a politician was the gold standard. That's when you're reaching the most people. Now Tucker Carlson gets more people on an afternoon than 60 Minutes gets. So times have changed. About Scott Pelley, I read his remarks. I tend to think that Scott Pelley knew exactly what he was doing. Obviously, I agree with everything that he has said. I know who is now running CBS News. That is definitely a provocation, that she was brought in there to basically turn it into another Fox. So we know what's going on there.
Yeah.
But Pelley in his remarks savaged her boss, savaged her boss's boss, and then savaged CBS as a corporation, and then went to the New York Times and did it all over again. So, two things. Number one, he placed CBS in an untenable position. They had to fire him. That's the way corporate America works. You cannot publicly criticize the corporation that you work for that vehemently. Secondly, hell, that's what Scott Pelley was after. He'd had enough. He wanted out, and he wanted to go out on his terms. He knew damn well what the result would be. Apparently, they met with the head of CBS News, not just his immediate boss, and CBS corporate yesterday afternoon in New York, and neither side gave an inch. So there you had it. He had to go. And I think that was Pelly's choice. Look, Scott Pelley's been around news for how long? Since the mid 80s.
Mm-hmm.
He knew exactly what he was doing. He felt strongly enough about it. He was the former anchor of the CBS Evening News. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he wanted this story out, and he wanted to go out with a bang. He succeeded in that.
Did you read his Twitter post?
I've not read anything.
So he posted on, I don't know if the statement was on Twitter, but somebody posted his statement on Twitter. There's never been anything in America like 60 Minutes. The Sunday tradition is the most successful program of any kind in history. For more than a decade, its innovative growth on every major online platform has extended its reach to countless millions around the world. This spring, at the end of our 58th season, 60 Minutes grew rapidly with an unheard of 9% jump in viewers on CBS. 60 has been the #1 program in America for decades because our beloved audience finds integrity, quality, and humanity in our stories. When stewardship of the program passed to my colleagues and me, our responsibility was to expand energetically into the new age of media technology while preserving the values our audience expects. Now, the new owner of our network is casting this legend aside, apparently to curry a moment of favor with the Trump administration. The waste is heartbreaking. Last month, 60 Minutes lost its DNA when our entire senior leadership and 2 of our best on-air correspondents were cruelly fired without cause. Good people were silenced because they stood up for our audience. They stood for fairness against the forces of political bias. They stood for professionalism against chaos. For my part, new management has instructed me to inject falsehoods and bias into a politically sensitive story. I've been told to include assertions that are unverified. To date, in every case, I have managed to ignore these instructions or refuse them. Recently, politicians have been invited to choose correspondents for interviews on the broadcast. Giving politicians control over 60 Minutes interviews is not how this is done. Finally, incompetence and unprofessionalism in the new management have wreaked havoc in a case involving one of my stories. The entire program came within 19 minutes of not getting on air at all. At 60 Minutes, we have fought harder than anyone knows to save the program that became an American icon. We owed that to our millions of viewers. I'm deeply moved by the thousands of wishes we have received to keep up the good fight. Most of the men and women of CBS News are still in that fight, but now the collapse of values at the top has become untenable. The leadership of 60 Minutes is no longer recognizable. The principles I hold dear are gone, and so I must leave as well. I depart after 37 years at CBS with one emotion, a heart brimming with gratitude for the men and women of CBS News who encouraged and enriched my work, very often at the risk of their own lives. I pray for a day when those people and their ideals are honored again, a day when sanity, competence, and courage returns. Scott Pelley.
Yeah, and it really moving words, and I can't emphasize for a lot of people in chat how important CBS was for people of an older generation. There wasn't the internet, there wasn't anything else. This was the network of Edward R. Murrow and Walter Cronkite. When Walter Cronkite spoke to you, he spoke to the nation. It was Walter Cronkite who told us Kennedy had died. It was Walter Cronkite. You know, when I was young watching elections, I didn't believe anybody won till Walter Cronkite said they won. It was that important. There were no alternative sources. And CBS was called the Tiffany Network for a reason. And when Bill Paley founded CBS, first as a radio network in the 1920s, and then obviously as a television network post-war, he
I think you got a phone call.
Yeah, Bill Paley was a real son of a bitch. But he agreed to one thing, complete editorial discretion of the news division. And within the news division, 60 Minutes was given complete editorial discretion, even within the news division. To see that shattered now is heartbreaking. The only thing I guess I'm happy about, if you can be happy about anything, is that the power of the network broadcasts are no longer large anyway. And I guess CBS is going out with a whimper and not a bang. But as you could tell by Mr. Paley's statements, he knew damn well what he was doing.
Yep.
Because in corporate America, you cannot speak to your bosses like that and expect to keep your job. And he didn't want to keep his job.
Yeah. I mean, let's be fair. I would not be surprised if Scott Pelley does the why am I blanking on his name? He was a former CNN anchor who lost his job and now basically has his own channel everywhere. He got arrested for the church thing in Minnesota.
Don Lemon.
Don Lemon. I
Oh,
wouldn't
my
be surprised
goodness.
if he does a Don Lemon kind of a deal.
I wouldn't. Linda pointed out in chat, he was admired greatly by Dan Rather, and he was. Dan Rather left CBS also for a very good reason. I actually got to know Dan Rather a little bit, not professionally, but as a college student. This was when Dan Rather was a rock star in the media firmament. I went to school with his daughter.
Oh my
Robin.
goodness. Now
Yeah.
you do know he's on Substack. Just putting
Yes,
that
I do.
out there.
Yes, I do.
Sweet.
He also left on principle. Dan Rather's tenure as the most famous. It's hard for anybody to understand this, but the anchor of CBS Evening News was arguably the most famous person in America. The most famous, including the President of the United States. That's how big they were.
Mm-hmm.
It was the one source of absolute truth. And CBS, they were very down the middle. And Dan Rather was. He was an excellent the man's still with us. An excellent news person, and by the way, an unbelievably nice man. Unbelievably nice. And he just loved us college kids. All he wanted to do was talk with us. But at any rate, he left under a bit of a cloud, and he left because he refused to throw his executive producer under the bus.
Yeah.
And he said, "No, I'm responsible." And he had to go.
I remember, whether or not CBS was down the middle, I don't know, but I always knew that 60 Minutes was. Like,
Yep.
60 Minutes 60 Minutes goal was never to say someone was right or wrong. It was just to get the truth from whoever was on their show. And that was what I always appreciated about it, no matter how much I hated the rest of the news episodes. It always felt to me from watching that 60 Minutes, because I remember even in the last couple years, I remember sitting here going, "Oh, 60 Minutes, that's CBS," but then I'd watch it and I'd be like, "Okay, yep, that's why I like watching it."
It's like Frontline that I trust, the 60 Minutes in Frontline, and then of course John Oliver. But for me, I think that that's a very good piece to have. I can't believe, I guess a part of me still is like in denial that we're losing 60 Minutes. I mean, after all the crap, after Stephen Colbert and everything that's been going on, at the end of the day, it's like, well, what happened to 60 Minutes? It's like one of our pillars for our news. And that, I think, too, shows as well that we're struggling here with having reliable news that we can depend and trust.
I mean, it makes me wonder if, just like going from radio to TV and then TV to internet, there's always been a push to hold on to the old. And there is no argument that every one of these major media companies, while they spent some time with like the online-ish type things, they still tried to be the same old in most cases. And it was always frustrated a lot of people. I think what has the potential of coming is a change in the way news happens. in a good way, because again, when you've got people like Don Lemon and Scott Pelley and all these other people that understand how to do journalism, if they can find ways to do it online and then other people can learn from that and learn through them, just like they did through watching these guys on TV, who knows what it could turn through. Again, I've said this before, we are in a transition period, a transition period on a lot of fronts. And I think this is just another one of those transitions.
I think you're right. I think even in my field, the legal field, we're feeling this turn, I guess is the best way that I would say it. We're turning a corner because we have a new way of needing to look at things, because before we didn't think people would go down this road of using 15 interlocutory appeals for one case. Like, that's just crazy talk. But that's what they do. And so now it's like, write everything so that it's ready to make it all the way up to SCOTUS, make sure all of your filings are done with all this extra stuff involved. High five to you too, dude.
I went all fuzzy. I had to fix my camera.
That's fine. I thought it was a high five. I was like,
well, I was doing that too. Yep. I was high fiving everybody.
But there's definitely
I'm sorry.
a change.
I thought you were finished. I didn't mean to speak over you. I apologize.
Oh, you're fine. I just like to do a finishing statement. And Your Honor, with that, the state rests.
Di, the problem to me is, I think the greatest threat to this country right now, and that's saying a lot because there are a lot of threats, is the media combines that are emerging in the entertainment, news, and social media field.
Yep.
These combines, led by Ellison, people like Meta and Facebook, are taking over places like Warner Brothers, Paramount, Skydance. They're taking over CBS, CNN, Fox, which will all become the same. We will now be getting our news basically from one source: social media, Meta, TikTok, and now, unfortunately, YouTube, which has gone to the dark side with the change of the political views of the owner of YouTube, the 180-degree change. So even that is going to change. That is now a three-legged stool. Do not underestimate the power of entertainment in shaping the cultural and political mores of the American people.
Mm-hmm.
Movies, streaming, television, HBO, by the way, and Skydance also fall under this, all now controlled by the right wing. The control of our cultural environment, movies, streaming, music, television, that sets the tone and subconsciously influences the people to a degree that is not understood well by the American people. There is a reason that the Department of Justice and the FTC has never allowed such media combinations to exist in the past. Now they are. And that is why they are rushing, while Trump is still president, to finish these deals, because no future DOJ antitrust division would ever let them get away with it. And this is such an unbelievable threat to our democracy, to have news, entertainment, and social media, the very fabric of how our society, both culturally and informationally, operates, controlled under one wing of any political view. And by the way, I would say the exact same thing if it were left-wing views. It is unbelievably dangerous to democracy. There is no greater threat that we face.
And
Well, I think you have some good points. Real quick, Mike,
Yeah.
before who can you guys remind me of who that, like, oh my gosh, this like old fat guy with a tricorner hat on the horse running to the next thing to say the British are coming?
Paul Revere.
Do we Thank you. I couldn't remember his name. Okay, I had to have his name in order to do this.
I'm a Massachusetts boy. We all know Paul Revere.
Except I don't think Paul Revere was fat.
Well, he was.
He was?
Oh, heck
Okay.
yeah. He was
Okay.
eating good. He was a rich man.
Well, I know Ben Franklin was a little bit hefty. I didn't know
Oh, yeah.
Paul Revere was. Okay,
They
learn
all
something
were.
new every day.
It was too much of the wacky tobacco, honestly. I think they had a lot of munchies. Anyway, so here's Paul Revere, right? And we all know about the Boston Massacre. I don't want to say too loud for the bots, but you remember the Boston Massacre. The reason that was only a couple of soldiers, which, boo, but the reason it got so kicked up and turned into like this major piece to start the revolution was because this fella decided to make a picture of it and put it in a paper. And the picture depicted all of this horror, nightmarish, gory stuff. And so people got the paper and were like, whoa, what's this? We just thought they were throwing ice balls and a couple of dudes got, pew-pewed. But it's this massacre that he puts out. I bring it up to remind everybody, media is propaganda. There's a lot of propaganda in there, and it takes a little bit extra time and effort to weed through the propaganda to the good stuff. And so that's one of the things I think we're going to need to be dealing with is the excessive quantities of that.
It's going to be very hard, Di, with singular consolidation of the tripod of American information and cultural news gathering of entertainment, news stations, and social media. By the way, you're talking about the Boston Massacre. Do you know who the defense attorney for the British soldiers was?
John Adams.
Very good.
Heck yeah,
I knew you'd know that.
History.
I knew you would know that. And by the way, he got him off.
He did. He was very upset about that, though.
Well, he was not terribly popular with his neighbors, but then again, John Adams never really cared about being popular.
And understandable.
Yeah. And the one positive that we have going forward with all of this is, if there's a positive, it's that the people that still, like, there are a lot of good people that are on the internet, and the internet is still changing. Like, we haven't found the end point like we did with TV. I'm seeing a lot of organizations that grew on things like the Tube or stuff like that, became major entertainment, organizations and stuff like that. They're creating their own sites now. Like, they're not their main way of getting people is not through places like the Tube or any of the other companies. They still put stuff there, but I'm seeing multiple people now saying it's actually better for us to just make our own site that people go to, because
trust, man.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Mike. And my views with CBS, Fox, CNN, believe it or not, that's not the super red flag that scares me, because they don't have the power that they used to. The viewership is so down on all the major networks, and that's a trend that's not going to diminish. After all, what is the average age of a Fox viewer? The average age, I believe it's somewhere around 64 years old. So where the hell is Fox going to be in 20 years anyway? So I'm not that worried about that. What scares the hell out of me is the entertainment end of this and the social media end of it. HBO, Warner Brothers, Discovery, Paramount Motion Pictures, and now Skydance, all of those controlled by the same person, is a terrifying combination. It's known in business as a consolidation. That is dangerous. That violates everything regarding how we used to enforce FTC rules and how we would enforce the antitrust division in the Department of Justice. We just saw a radio conglomerate getting together. Now, I believe the rule, Di, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe the rule is you can get 40%, and these people are going to have 60% of the radio stations. I believe there's a rule that only gives you 40%. So we're seeing that consolidation that is getting approved by the FTC. This is scary as hell, and that really, really bothers me. and nobody's paying attention to it, and they should be.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, especially when it comes to movies, it's actually not abnormal for even the government to fund certain kinds of movies to be made based on what's going on around the world at that moment. Um, they've
Absolutely.
they've been doing that for years.
Citizens United was the whole case that went to SCOTUS that destroyed a lot of things was because of a video that they'd made of Hillary Clinton. So, I mean, that's incredibly powerful, without a doubt.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's definitely all concerning. And you know, we were talking about it a little bit before, you know, we say this is all happening and nobody's talking about it. Well, that's part of the problem is there's just so freaking much to talk about. You know, when before you got on, I was talking about how we're going through civil rights era, Gilded Age, women's suffrage, LGBTQIA rights, and probably a couple more things. We're going through all of those periods of battles, but all at the exact same time now, as opposed to in separate chunks.
Yep. It's a lot.
It is a lot. And the only salutary thing to think of right now is every generation of Americans thinks that they're living in extraordinary times, and they are. But other generations lived in extraordinary times, just different challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And 25, 30 years from now, there's going to be an extraordinary time that challenges the nation. So history moves in a fairly steady rhythm, and this too shall pass. But the issue is, how are we going to stop what can be the future? I call this really, forget Project 2025, media, news, and social media consolidation is really part of Project 2030. Stay with me here. Hear my point.
I can't. You said 2030, and that makes me upset.
I'll tell you why it's 2030. Because the Republicans are looking forward to the 2030 census, which will enable redistricting and will, for the first time, the Democrats would always take the White House as long as they took Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. Now, starting in 2030, as a result of the census, the red states are going to gain electoral votes and blue states will lose a few. That means while up to now it has been a luxury for the Democrats to win in Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona, Nevada, it wasn't a necessity as long as they took Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. Now the Democrats are going to have to win in the South. They're going to have to. Otherwise, even if they sweep Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, they can't take the White House. So the Republicans see the playing field being tilted towards them. This recent Supreme Court decision about the Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 is a part of tilting that playing field. So sure, it may not matter in 2026 because this is going to be a blue wave election, but it will matter a lot in the future. And they're looking at it in a big picture. Control the media, control entertainment, control social media, tilt the playing field towards you, and we can establish long-term rule. That's what's scary.
I'll be interested to see what, and I hear what you're saying about the 2030 census, and it definitely has that potential based on what you're seeing right now. I'll be interested to see if over the next, 4 years something doesn't shift in a different way. Like, again, in the end, I'll be very interested to see what 4 years from now looks like. It's one of those things where I'll be very interested to see what we're worried about now, and then look at 4 years from now and we realize, I don't know, something happened in those 4 years that completely shifts everything in a direction we didn't even think
Sure.
about.
I mean, global warming could flood out Florida, and I'm not even making a joke here.
No, you're right.
Or the homeowners insurance crisis and the educational crisis in Florida get so bad that people actually start to leave Florida, or maybe even leave Texas. That's possible, but right now does not look probable. And is there a number on this? Yes, there is. About 6 to 12 electoral college votes will shift, which means that the Democrats are going to have to win either North Carolina or Georgia. They're going to have to. They're going to have to win maybe Arizona. Whereas now it's a luxury. After 2030, it's not a luxury anymore. They have to learn how to compete. And by the way, they should be learning how to compete in those states. That's not necessarily a bad thing. They've got to learn to be able to compete in states that right now they're not winning.
Sure. I mean, and again, and I say this every time because I want to be clear. Every statement, and I know Scott believes this too, and I'm sure Di believes this as well. Every statement we make is always based on the information that we have right now. It's always based on if things continue as they are currently going. What's up, Captain? Who knows what could change that could I mean, again, as we know, a lot of people that are a lot of conservatives are losing their lives faster than a lot of progressives. Why? Because conservatives are more likely to not get the medication that a lot of us get when we are, to protect ourselves.
Dog host Dem makes a very good point in chat, and I think it should be talked about. He said, if we win in Ohio, the South won't matter. That's a very good point. When I point out to the South, I'm really referring to North Carolina and Georgia. But there is another route, and you are correct to bring it up, Dog Catcher. Thank you. There's Ohio, Missouri, and Iowa. That is another way. If the Democrats used to be very competitive in all three of those states, but they're now down by double digits in all three of those states, and that could change. And in fact, there is some indication, at least in Ohio, that it is changing. But the Democrats can't always count on having a hugely unpopular Republican president. Donald Trump's running at a 35% approval rating. That's not always going to be the case. He's gone in a couple of years. And the Democrats have to learn how to compete on a year-to-year, cycle-to-cycle basis in states like Ohio, you're correct, Dog Catcher, in states like Missouri, in states like Iowa, and of course, Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona, Nevada, and maybe Texas and Florida someday. Maybe Texas today.
And James, 50 gallons, $150. Why are we paying so much? Because that's the crude oil price. So the crude oil has to go from the oil company to the refinery. Then the refinery has to make a profit on the refined product, which then has to go onto a truck, which then has to travel to places. And then the transportation costs of the oil has to go into it. And then it goes into a gas station, which also has to make a profit on it. And then you also get taxes, which cover things like road repairs and all that other stuff. That's why gas gets to the price that it's at, because it's the oil in the barrel is not what you put in your car. And that's the problem with all of it. Why are the cost of goods going up? Because the cost of diesel is skyrocketing. Diesel is insanely expensive right now, more than gas.
That industry needs to get itself sorted out when it comes to the drivers paying for that much for diesel and various other things. It really is concerning that they're back in the same position they were in just a few years ago, where a diesel and gas were just ridiculous. Everyone was buying a electric car at that point. I don't know if people remember that, but I feel bad for the drivers. I mean, that's crazy. That's coming out of their pocket.
Well, and I think this is the problem that people don't realize. So everyone who says, oh, why there shouldn't be a problem. Why? Because we create so much, we drill so much oil of our own. So here's the issue. And again, if you don't watch someone like Mr. Global, watch him, because he will tell you a lot. So diesel comes from oil, just like gas comes from oil. Light crude, which is what we get here in the Americas, or the North America, doesn't create much diesel. Heavy crude, which has to get imported in. We don't have heavy crude here. That comes from the Middle East or Venezuela or anything else. But they also have to use stuff to transfer it over here. Is Canada's heavy crude? I thought Canada's was light crude too. Maybe I'm wrong, but
I think Russia and Canada both make a decent amount of heavy crude. I believe that Canada also makes more akin to West Texas Intermediate oil as well.
Gotcha.
But I think that the poster is correct. Canada is also a source of heavy crude.
But either way, that all gets imported. Like, we as a country don't drill the kind of oil that makes things like diesel, which again, most trucks and like, not even just talking like 18 wheelers, we're talking trucks that a lot of people drive, all use diesel as well.
Yeah, and diesel means so much to the cost of everything else because of transportation. Everything is transported by diesel. I mean, it adds to the cost of our food. It adds to the cost of our goods and services. When you get a package delivered by Amazon, they're running on diesel.
Although, if you're talking from Amazon warehouses to you, those are all electric. Well, maybe not all yet, but I know a lot of them, at least around me, are all electric trucks now.
Yeah, and they use a lot of subcontractors who use their own cars.
That's true, especially in the winter time, like Christmas time.
Yep.
Yes, I know we get oil actually cheaper from Canada than even our own. But yep. And again, why would any oil company want the price of oil to go down? They're making bank. They're drilling literally millions of barrels of oil, and they get to sell it over twice what it was selling for just, what, a year ago? Well, it's probably about twice now.
It's awful. I don't know a lot about gas. I just don't, but I've been hearing a lot, and I think it's absolutely one of the biggest concerns of the American people right now is the gas and how we're going to pay for it. I mean, if you look back to the 1970s, I think we were rationing gas at that point, weren't we?
Oh, I remember it well.
Well, yeah.
Well,
I'm a little bit older than you, Di.
Just by a year or two.
We weren't on the global market in the 70s. It wasn't until the Shell revolution that we went on the global market, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, we were a huge in the 1970s and even into the early 80s. We were a huge net importer of oil because the shale revolution hadn't gotten started. shale oil changed everything. It changed the whole marketplace. But yeah, that was rough. And indeed, they were odd and even days, Di, and we had to, not only odd and even, you had to wait at least an hour to get gas.
Oh my goodness. Especially with those big gas guzzling cars in the 70s.
Oh yeah.
My goodness. Driving whales around, you can't pay for gas.
Well, with all due respect to everybody today, the economy is so terrible. The economy is so terrible. You should have seen what it was like in the 70s. We had a recession and high inflation at the same time, which I'm afraid is where we're heading to now. And that's called stagflation, and that's awful. And, you know, Di, you said that, you know, you didn't know much about the oil business. Mike is so right. Just listen to Mr. Global. You want to know what's great about him? For lay people like us, I mean, what do we know about oil markets and inventories and stuff like that? He is so relatable. He breaks it down so simply that he's telling you really good information, but he's telling it to you like you're a human being and not a fellow oil executive like he is. He's just so good at the way he delivers information. I'm literally in awe of it. He's really that good. And Di, you'll be able to follow it all. Believe me. I know you're a little bit afraid he's going to be too deep into the weeds. No, he's not. He's very relatable.
I'm not afraid.
You have no fear?
I've got no fear. I left it in law school, but I do have to say that he is amazing, actually. I've done a couple of posts where the lawsuits have included those questions that we're asking right now. And so I've just said, well, this is this, but then Mr. Global, you need to explain it. Bah. And then he has joined the video and he's like, all right, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
He's just so open to helping and discussing, and he's just a really great guy. Rumor has it he's off to DC pretty soon, but he's great. And also there's another fella whose name escapes me, but it was I think he called it the back 40. He's a farmer, I believe.
Yeah, Wes.
Yes.
I'm mutuals with him. I can't remember his name. Wes something. I'm sure someone in here will know. That's the great thing. There you go, Westmoreland. Will Westmoreland. Thank you.
Thank you. He's amazing too. It was so funny the first time that I spoke with him when we were doing a live. I said, well, I'm out here in the sticks. And then he's like, yep, you don't have to explain that to us. We all know what you're saying compared to you big city folk.
Yep. So, and people are talking about we're not going to run out. Yeah, no, we're not going to run out of oil per se, because we produce a crap ton of it. What's going to happen, the reason prices are going to go up is because, so prices, again, some of this is what I've seen from Mr. Global, but others is just economics. So the way we're dealing with the reason that you're going to get prices going up on oil, because of, even though we are producing as much as we are, is because as the storage that we have of oil globally, not just in the United States, but globally, is to help protect against interruptions, whether it's a refiner that goes down, or you know, a bunch of different things, a lot of things that can cause it. Having stuff in storage helps protect against that. When the storage levels continue to drop on everything, it does not mean we can't make enough for our day-to-day needs. It means if anything happens, we're in trouble. And that's the problem that we're dealing with, especially in the United States, where a lot of the companies that refine the oil, those things are old. We haven't had, I think one new refiner is being built right now, but in general, a lot of them are old and getting shut down. And hurricane season is coming, and you know, and travel season is coming, so people are going to be driving more and being outside more than they usually are. So it's not that we don't make enough, it's the supply and demand. So part of the supply involves needed storage. Like storage is a necessary part that goes into the pricing of oil and gas and everything else that we are going to be losing. No slack if something interrupts supply, correct? And that is going to be our biggest problem. Is easily we are, I mean, the National Strategic Reserve. Why do you ask, Patrick?
Well, gee whiz. Patrick, is
Do
he
you
a
have
friendly or not?
I've
Patrick,
never
do you-
seen this
do you-
person
do-
before.
Do you actually have any questions, Patrick? Anything you want to add to the conversation? Somehow I doubt it.
Do you want me to put him in on our FBI list?
Oh my gosh, that was hilarious. These questions are wild.
Okay,
What?
Patrick, on you go to the list.
I'm getting my George Soros check, Patrick. Mike, did you get your George Soros check yet?
Gosh, I wish.
I know Di got hers. She was telling me the other
Wouldn't
day
that
she
be
got her
nice?
George Soros check. You know, that's where this is leading. You realize that.
Probably.
Here we go.
It was funny.
Enjoy your time.
Ah. I'm on unemployment.
Not for long.
Well, you can be unemployed from this channel too.
Oh, yay.
That was hilarious.
I think it was a little funny, actually.
It was hilarious. When
Name the
he
three
asked
branches.
when he asked me about the 3 branches, I'm like, dude.
What do you think we talk about every day, you know?
Oh my gosh. It's like I've literally been doing this. Forget what I knew before I started doing this, but I have been doing this for almost 4 years straight now, just on TikTok.
Sorry.
But you're fine.
Oh, I missed what you just said. I apologize.
I've been doing this almost every day for 4 years straight on TikTok. And you think I don't know what the 3 branches of government are? Jeez.
I think that test has been going around, though. I've heard like 3 other creators use it. And if they get it wrong, they're like, okay, you got to go. You can't even stay here.
I mean, it is hard to have some of the conversations we're trying to have if you don't understand basic civics. I can understand that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason that I don't bring just anybody up. If you are blaming somebody for something that they don't have any responsibility for, that doesn't help the story.
Absolutely.
Patrick thinks I'm doing it from a high school cafeteria. Yeah. So do you think we're going to be officially going to war again with Iran? You know, because we're supposedly still in a ceasefire.
I just, that whole situation is so upsetting.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like when everybody okay, listen, I can't even put it into words how frustrating it is. But I mean, what kind of a dumbass starts a war in the Middle East, for no reason? There's got to be a reason.
I think what makes it worse for me is not what he did, because he's an idiot.
Right.
I expect everything that this man has done is 100% in line with everything that I expected from him.
Mm-hmm,
What's hard for me and what frustrates the hell out of me is the people that are trying to say that what he is doing is smart. Whether it's in his administration or these podcasters that just that, you know, have orange noses. Like, that is the part that frustrates me, because you hear them talk and you're just like, do you hear yourself? Like, I watched something today, a clip, and they're like, yeah, we just got to wait them out, because every time we wait, it gets harder for them. And, you know, we're one step closer to making that deal that we need. And it's like, excuse me?
Iran has been under sanctions since 1979, on and off. Look, every American president since the 1979 revolution that brought Khomeini to the leadership of Iran, every American president has been presented with war plans. The reason that none of them ever acted on it is painfully obvious, because they knew that the first move that Iran would make would be to close the Straits of Hormuz, thereby imperiling the entire world's economy. Only this president, in his infinite, and you had it right before, Mike, in his infinite stupidity, took the bite. He's the only one who did it, and had the gall to say, well, nobody knew they would close the Straits of Hormuz. In fact, everybody knew that they would do that. Everybody. You could ask a third grader and they would tell you that that's the first thing Iran's going to do, because it's asymmetric warfare. They know they can't go toe-to-toe with an F-35, but they know they can close the Straits of Hormuz, where 20% of the world's oil and 20% of the world's natural gas come through. So they knew that they could bring the world economy into a crisis situation.
Mm-hmm.
They knew that, which is why no American president has pulled the trigger, except for this one. And by the way, apparently he was told by the Joint Chiefs of Staff that this would happen, and he said, no, it won't.
No,
well, it did.
He thought that what happened in Venezuela would happen with Iran, because he doesn't understand anything.
Yes, he downplayed the entire situation. Now, your original question is, do you think we're going to go back to the war? Well, the war hasn't stopped, but do you think we're going to engage in more kinetic action against Iran? Well, it's about 11:40 in the morning right now. Trump will give an answer now, and by 4 this afternoon, he'll give a completely different answer. And he is so remarkably unself-aware, he doesn't realize when he's contradicting himself. Just the other day, after constantly telling us how we have obliterated Iran's military, he said, you know, I've been very nice, and I haven't attacked their military. I haven't destroyed their military. And I'll bet that's a surprise to you, he asked the interviewer. Well, yeah, you're sure as hell right it's a surprise to us, because you've been telling us for 3 months how you have destroyed and obliterated their military. And he is so clueless and has such a lack of self-awareness, he doesn't realize that within one sentence he contradicts himself.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, this is the part that I don't think people realize. The war is already lost. This is why we're saying it like this. The second he started it, he lost it. Why? Because even if, and this is the part that people don't get about that country, even if we lined the strait with military vehicles, boats would still cost more for ships to go through there, because the reason they were lining it is because they were worried about any kinetic anything getting through and damaging or destroying something that goes through. And no matter how many things you put up there, no matter how many boats you put out there, there is going to be a chance that something will get through and destroy, which means that insurance will skyrocket if they can get it at all, or people will just be unwilling to do it at all, which means the cost of what they are transporting will end up skyrocket, which means it's never going to go back, because this action has made it so unless a an actual peace deal where Iran gets, I mean, Iran's going to win whatever deal happens, no matter what, because they are the ones that hold all the cards. You think they care about the kinetic ability of this country? They don't, because they know all they have to do is wait it out. And yes, their government, their regime doesn't care about the average person, not in general, no. But it's a country of 93 million people. And if even half of them agree with this regime in one way, shape, or form, that's not something you easily counter, ever.
Look, this is a tyrannical, thuggish regime. Nobody disputes that. And you're quite right. They're a regime that could care less about their own people. They sent hundreds of thousands to die in the Iran-Iraq, to perish in the Iran-Iraq war. They've continued the deprivations of their own citizens. They slaughtered 30,000 to 50,000 in the recent round of protests. But they have put up with sanctions for 40, 50 years. They don't care. They don't care. So you're quite right. The war's already lost, no matter what happens. Why? For the exact reason that Mike just said. Lloyd's of London sets the insurance rates, and all the other insurance companies follow that. And they are going to treat the Straits of Hormuz as a consistent war zone, which is going to make the cost of transit extremely difficult for oil companies and end users to bear. So we're looking at permanent higher costs. If you think gas is going back to $2.40 a gallon anytime soon, you're delusional.
I don't think it's ever, barring a global collapse of all markets, barring a global collapse of all markets that just across the board reduces the economy of everything, I don't see a way that oil can go down to that price or lower.
Well,
Yeah,
not with that attitude. Jeepers, man.
It's the same idea as this. It's the same idea as how we fix our own economy. So we talk about the problem of inflation here, and it is a problem. It's an absolute problem. And we talk about how people need to make more money, or just affordability as a whole. And let's be fair, there's only two ways that we can create a world that is more affordable, right? We either lower the cost of everything, which is deflation, which in general, in the economics world, is considered really, really bad. That's not what you want. Deflation is what happens during a recession or a depression. So no one's going to sit here and say, I want my house to be worth less. I want every amount of money I'm making in my company to be worth less, et cetera, et cetera. Or you increase the income of everybody in the country, which arguably also will increase inflation, because companies will, at least as it stands right now, will charge more because their costs will go up. Now, there's some things that you can do to counter some of those rises, like, make rules that if they, you tax their profits more and things like that, which means there's some ways you can go around it. But that doesn't change the fact that the only two ways to do it, again, if you own a house, if you bought a house right now that is, is worth like $400,000 or $500,000, but 10 years ago it was worth a quarter that, you're not going to want deflation. Because if your house was worth, that's how people go out. That's basically what happened in 2008. Is people were losing their houses so much that the housing market crashed, and then people couldn't afford to pay their bills. So those houses went on the market and they had to sell them for cheaper, and then it went back up. So we're in this endless circle where it's like, again, I don't want to make anyone feel bad, but these are just some of the realities that we have to accept. And there's no matter what, there's going to be pain. That is again because we allowed over the decades it to get to where it is, pain is not an option. What pain we get, how bad the pain is, how long the pain lasts, that is still up in the air.
Yeah, I agree, Mike. You're quite right. There is a way for gas to get back to $2.40 a gallon, and we sure as hell don't want to see it. It would take a worldwide recession. If there's a worldwide recession, yeah, gas goes down to $2.40 a gallon, and you'll get to celebrate when you go to buy gas, going to the unemployment office because you're going to be losing your job. It's not anything we want to look forward to. We've created this mess, and the other thing that you might not have mentioned is our deficit our national debt is so high that we don't have the elastic ability to weather a recession that we've had in previous recessions. We're behind the damn 8 ball here.
Yep. This is why we say taxing wealth is what's necessary in this economy. It's not because, and again, I say this knowing that pain is going to come. A small portion of this country has been playing with monopoly money for a long time. They are borrowing on themselves. They are borrowing on their debt. They are never paying taxes on it, and they're living off of it completely. Like, again, I was watching a couple different people about how this whole borrowing based borrowing off your wealth works, and how they literally never pay taxes on any of it, because basically they just keep borrowing a little bit more once to pay off the old debt. And it's like, so they've never paid. They never paid. And it's like, this is the problem. This is the problem we're dealing with. And it's not a problem you can fix easily, because again, what happens if we force them to get rid of some of that wealth or tax it, and they have to like sell some of that wealth, or we tax them on their borrowing or whatever? The stock market will go down. And there's no escaping that. The only way we can have a strong stock market and have people be able to survive, see you, Patty, is if everyone makes around the same. That's the only way we could even close to possibly do what we're doing. I don't even think it's possible to be as strong as we are without this monopoly money way of doing things that we're doing right now.
You know, Mike, and you know, we discussed this personally the other day. I'm not one of these eat the rich type people in general, but with the income disparity having reached the levels of higher than the Gilded Age now, the largest income disparity really in Western history that we're seeing right now, we don't have much of a choice. There's going to have to be some sort of wealth tax, as unpalatable as that may be for some people. We're going to have some sort of wealth tax, because the income disparity is going to lead to great social unrest in this country. It already has, but it hasn't turned in a terrible, violent way. But the red flashes are going off towards that, and we're going to have a reckoning with that. The income disparity is too great. It's greater than even during the Gilded Age, and that caused a great amount of social change in America. And I think we're going to have to come to grips with that sooner rather than later.
What would happen if we didn't have a stock market? Again, as a whole, you would get a company that... The problem is right now that question is a hard one to answer, because without a complete crash of the economy, we cannot get rid of the stock market. I hate the stock market. The stock market may have created a massive amount of wealth in this country, but in terms of the economy and for the people that do most of the actual work in this country, the stock market has been the worst thing humanly possible for society. Because again, what it has done is make the rich richer, and it has put more weight of production on the people at the bottom. So in the end, what would happen? Companies would make money and store money in banks and things like that, just like they used to do before it existed. The stock market has allowed things to grow faster because what has allowed the economy to do is the wealthy people, it's given them a place to put their money into other places and other groups and other people, which has allowed them to easily grow. But it's not necessary, especially in the internet age. I think it's even less necessary because it's much easier to find people and places that you want to invest in. That's not the stock market. The only reason the stock market still exists is for rich people to make money. It's not for the average person that may want to, invest in a small business or something like that. It's really for the wealthy to gain wealth. That's it now.
Dodd, what do you think about the income disparity and this discussion? I'd be interested in your point of view.
Well, I don't really track stuff like that, but I will say the income disparity, I mean, of course, we've always had that though, haven't we? For a very long time. Now maybe we'll see that more so, but I think people have been screaming about it for a long time as well. But that's the only thing I would really add in this situation is that the income disparity, which in all honesty, I think people really were thinking about when they were voting and how that might get even worse. Yeah, that's definitely a problem. But that's really it. That's all I have. I don't understand all the other stuff.
Lee, I would argue that the stock market is already divorced from the economy, per se. And you can tell that by the actual knowledge and straight up facts that inflation is growing, unemployment is growing, cost of living is growing, all the things that show that we are either near or in some cases, a form of recession, and yet the stock market keeps going up. They're already divorced in some way. The problem is there is so much money. There's so much money in the people that do the stock market stuff that it doesn't matter. The problem is us. The problem is in general, us don't understand how, don't pay attention to what's going on or care. We just all think, we think what we used to think, which is that the stock market and the economy are connected. They're not. You're not smart enough to save and invest for the future. Not my problem.
Ooh, let's talk about that. There's lots of different ways to save and invest for the future, right? But you know what? That's kind of a crappy thing to say, Judy. Yeah.
It's
Mike, I tend to agree with you. And full disclosure, do I own stocks? Yes, I do. I am stunned at the divergence of the stock market from the economy as a whole. I mean, I'm just stunned by it. It makes no logical sense to me whatsoever. Maybe it's a rigged game. Before, I would have laughed off and said, you're just a conspiracy theorist. Now I'm really wondering. I'm really, really wondering about that because it makes no sense. The economy, the size of our national debt, the fact that the nation is now spending $1 trillion a year on interest in the debt. What do we get for that $1 trillion? Not a damn thing. We get nothing. That is just not sustainable, folks. That's not sustainable. One would think that a rational stock market would be panicking, and yet it keeps going up, and I have no explanation for that whatsoever. And you're quite right, Mike. It has become completely divorced from the economic realities, and I don't know what's causing that.
I would put it in the same category as what we talked about before when it comes to voting, even. Like, okay, I have no knowledge of stocks. I don't have that kind of room in my brain, so I don't care to know about it. But I know it's important. Meanwhile, your average person, right? What's she doing? She's raising her kids, she's going to school, she's got a couple jobs, she's running around trying to keep the kids okay. You know, when are you going to sit down at the kitchen table when you're making dinner for everybody and say, "Hey, can someone talk to me about some stocks?" Right? Like that is outside of the realm of reality for a lot of people. And I think it's important to be not only sensitive to it, but saying, look, I know, but we're cut off from going into the stock market area because of our income. I'm just saying in general, people. And so I think again, this idea that, well, market's bad or market's good, that's like what rich people say. Like we don't even associate with that as the lower class, I suppose, is how I would put it. So I think that that is where we split a lot in ideologies. And I think that's where the Democrats split as well. That's why I think we have so many problems because those who are out there taking the night classes, working the two jobs, trying to take care of the kids, all of that, it's like we're invisible, is what I'm hearing. Like we don't count, you don't care. We just have to figure out a way to get some sandwiches on the table so you can tell us that the sandwiches aren't healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
therein goes the problem that Mike was talking about, Di. That's exactly the problem. We have a disparity here between those who are playing this game up in the ether. And by the way, I wish I had a gazillion stocks. I don't. Those who are playing this game up in the ether and everybody else who, exactly what you said, is working two jobs to make ends meet. And folks, that is going to lead to a social tipping point. It has in the past in a great many nations, in Weimar Germany, in that's Germany circa 1933, in Tsarist Russia in the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917, you know, in Great Britain with the crash,
French
and then the
Revolution.
crash, and obviously the crash of 1929, which started the Great Depression here in the United States, which spread worldwide. That led to tremendous social unrest. And it all goes back to, look, people earn money, and I appreciate that. And I'm not saying, inadvertently bash them. What I am saying is it's gotten too far. We have one or the upper 10% controlling the top 60% of the wealth in this country. That's not sustainable, folks. That's common sense. It's not sustainable.
And I will say, you are hearing the people at the top starting to realize it. You are hearing some ultra wealthy people say, we probably need to be taxed more because what we are dealing with right now is unsustainable. Not many, but I have heard on podcasts, on clips, some starting to say, I like literally straight up, I'm starting to think that maybe we are going to have to start being taxed more because what I'm seeing is something that is unsustainable. Because here's the reality. As Di said, people are just barely surviving. A lot of us, you look at even my family and we seem like we're doing decent, but that's because we got lucky and we bought our house after the 2008 crash. If it weren't for that, we'd be toast right now.
Imagine a kid now trying to buy a house.
Exactly.
Just imagine.
Exactly.
Warren Buffett, who's one of the richest men in the world, has been saying for 40 years, I don't pay enough in taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And Peter Thiel just ran away. What does that tell you?
Mm-hmm.
He just ran away.
So what we are seeing is all of these people that are just surviving, and you're starting to see it slowly happen. We've said this before. Nothing I or anyone else here can say can convince any of you to care. None of it. The only person that can convince you to care is yourself. Now, something I could say can make you start thinking, which can end up making you care. But no, I cannot convince you to care. I cannot convince you. What convinces people to do, the reason you're seeing warehouses get lit on fire all over and the people aren't running. The reason, what makes someone be willing to go to a protest or go to or do something like lighting those warehouses on fire. You get to a point where what you are currently experiencing no longer feels better than the potential ramifications of you doing something like protesting or even lighting a warehouse on fire. And that's the problem you're seeing everywhere. You see it, you see the stress points breaking out everywhere. You see it in the adults, you see it in the kids, you're seeing people snapping and not caring about, like it used to be when it was just people being, greedy or whatever. They would do something that was considered a crime and they would try and hide it. People ain't hiding it anymore. That's the dangerous part. That is why I say we are at a dangerous tipping point, because people are starting to not feel as though being arrested, even potentially losing your life, is actually worse than what they are experiencing right now. And that's how things like the French Revolution happened and all of these other things. And, I will say, could something like that happen? Absolutely could. Could it completely change this entire country? Absolutely it could. What I want to remind everyone, and again, if you haven't looked into it, look into it. For everyone here and anyone that ever may listen to anything I say, what happened after something like the French Revolution may have ended up being good, but the time from the French Revolution to when it started being good was actually worse for the people that started the French Revolution than it was for the people at the top.
Didn't they have another revolution? While that revolution was going on?
Well, yeah, they restored the Bourbon monarchy, and Robespierre and the rest of the gang got sent to the gallows.
Oh, that's right.
Well, or sent to the guillotine, I should say.
Because
that one is better.
Because the problem that we're dealing with when it comes to any of these kind of revolutions is not only what leadership takes over after, but these people at the top, these people that have stuff right now, are still going to have stuff. It just doesn't magically go away. The stock market may crash and they won't have their wealth anymore, but these guys still have stuff. They have houses, they have boats, they have all of these other things. If the economy crashes, if the banks that they owed money to no longer exist, if the government no longer exists after, you know who benefits the most from all that? The people that spent all of their wealth on things.
Well, this reminds me too of what Bill Cosby said before he went to prison for essay issues. But he used to say, "Why are you taxing me? Because I'm rich now. I've got all this money and you want it. Why do I have to give you any of my money?" And I think that really is appropriate for lots of people in that area where you've got the money and you've worked so hard for it. You're like, man, I don't need to give it to anybody else. But that's a mindset, an ideology. That's like a core value issue that I think is too tough to try to deal with at this time. But I think that's one of the issues too.
Well, yeah, I mean,
oh, go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say it's even a little bit more than that. It's we created a society where getting as much as you can and creating wealth is the ultimate purpose, and holding on to it is the ultimate purpose. Back when rich people were when wealth was, or when income was taxed at like 90%, the country was doing great. And yeah, wealthy people probably still wanted more, but the system was set up to help the people at the bottom get some of that. Because if you know that you're going to get taxed at 90% above $1 million or 20 million or whatever million you want to call it, they're going to end up putting that money somewhere else as opposed to putting it into wealth.
Yeah, I was just going to say I agree with you. The French example of 1789 is a very apt example, and that's what scares me. Am I predicting that that's going to happen? No, I am not. But am I saying that that is a possibility? A lot more so than it was 30 years ago. And, you know, I know a guy who's got mega generational wealth, and he supported Trump, and he's a very bright guy. He went to a very superb business school. Well, just imagine the best business school in the world. That's the one he went to. And at any rate, so I asked him, we were fraternity brothers. And I said, why the hell? I said, you're a smart guy. You know what this guy is. He said, yeah, the tax breaks. And I said, you've got generational wealth. What the fuck do you need any more money for? And he said, here's what you don't understand, Scott. After a while, it becomes a game. And that's exactly what Mike is talking about. He said, you just, you look at the numbers year to year. It becomes a game. Now, that to me is, I was sickened that my friend would say something like that.
Yeah.
But that is what he said. He would willingly vote for a guy he knows is incompetent because of personal gain for himself and his business. And that it isn't only the less educated who would, and the less knowledgeable who support this type of man in the White House. It's also a number of people just like him. And finally, again, why did Peter Thiel leave? He's no dummy. He knows something's going to happen. He ran away.
Yeah. He knows that. And again, why was he willing to do? I read something else about this. This is a man who arguably supported everybody that is against everything who he is, in the sense of he is a member of the LGBTQ community, and he's got a kid with his husband, and like, Bill did it because he can just move to Argentina whenever he wants. He knows the impact AI is going to. He sees the change. And again, you can look at it multiple ways. He sees the ship turning. He sees society shifting, and he sees it not being good for someone who's an elite. That is a possibility as well. I mean, in the end, only person who really knows what he's thinking is him in his brain. You can't even go by what he says, just like you can't technically go by what anyone says. Only go by what they do.
True story. True story, Mike. And with that, I need to go because I'm worried I'm going to go fall asleep and start snoring on your live again. And then I will be embarrassed for the second time because of that. So I must leave.
Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Di. It is always such a pleasure to be with you.
Always.
Of course. You too as well. Take care. Bye.
Bye. I mean, it's 12:08 anyways, so it's about that time. Guys, thank you so much for being here today. I know a lot of these conversations are hard and probably frustrating, because they frustrate me on a daily basis, because sometimes it feels like there's nothing we can do about it. In the end, I hope what you learn here we end up taking out of here, because while this space is great and I hope it keeps growing and I hope more and more people keep coming, if we don't take what we learn and talk about here and go out of here, we won't fix what's going on. And that's the important thing, is taking the knowledge that we get here and going farther, going somewhere with it. So guys, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for the likes, the shares, the gifts, and the subs. I don't know if you're still here, Lewis, but I noticed that you became a super fan. Thank you so very much. I really appreciate you, my friend. If you are over here on TikTok, just so you know, I also go live on the tube 30 minutes before I go live here. I also post videos from candidates that are running for office almost every single day, although that number's going down a little bit now. And you're going to start seeing me do second interviews with people that won their primaries. So we're going to go a little bit deeper on things and stuff like that. There's also going to be some really cool stuff coming in the future. So again, thank you so much for being here, everyone. I appreciate you more than you possibly can know. And remember, we're all people, no matter your race, religion, gender, identity, deserve rights, respect, dignity, and safety. And I hope we all remember that that is what we are fighting for in the long run. So I will see you guys tomorrow morning. You are amazing just the way you are, and I love you all very much. Stay safe, stay healthy. Remember to sing, laugh, dance, smile. Do something that makes you happy. Bye, guys.